There's a moment in every trader's life when they realize it's not the market that's moving too fast. It's their mind. The charts, the numbers, the news, they never stop. And somewhere along the way, you forget what you're really chasing. It's not the perfect entry. It's not the next breakout. It's peace. Peace in decision. Peace in uncertainty. Peace in the noise. But peace doesn't come from adding more. It comes from subtracting what doesn't serve you. This is where mastery begins, not with another indicator, but with awareness. Not with more data, but with more clarity. You can have 10 charts and still be blind, or one chart and finally see. Because when you reduce cognitive load, you don't just clear your screen, you clear your mind. And in that clarity, you rediscover what trading was meant to be, not a war against the market, but a conversation with yourself. Welcome to Mind Over Markets. Welcome to one chart mode. Most traders don't lose because they don't know enough. They lose because they know too much all at once. You open your screen. 6 charts blink in front of you. Each one whispers something different. You start chasing the one that moves first, then the next, then another. By the time you act, your brain isn't trading anymore. It's reacting to color, to motion, to fear. This is what happens when the mind tries to handle too much data. It freezes or it fights. Both end the same way: chaos on the screen and confusion in your head. We call it cognitive load. It's not just a fancy word. It's the weight your mind carries when you try to process more than it was designed to handle. And in trading, that weight costs money. It costs focus. It costs emotional control, because trading is not about what you see. It's about what your brain can handle seeing. Every chart, every indicator, every flashing candle demands attention. Your brain, built for survival, responds to each as if it's danger or opportunity. You think you're analyzing, but what you're actually doing is scanning for threats. You're not thinking strategically. You're firefighting. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, slowly shuts down, and your amygdala, your emotional center, takes over. That's when trading becomes gambling, not because you want it to, but because your biology doesn't know the difference between a losing trade and a hungry lion. When your mind is overloaded, it reverts to instinct. It either avoids risk completely or it overcompensates and takes too much. And both are emotional reactions, not conscious decisions. Now imagine this. What if you remove the noise? What if your mind could focus on a single flow of information, a single heartbeat of the market? That's what one chart mode is really about. It's not about being minimalist. It's about being mentally efficient. One chart, one signal, one decision flow. When you limit your visual input, your mind stops scanning and starts seeing. You begin to notice the rhythm behind the movement, the emotion behind each candle, the psychology of the crowd embedded in every tick. You're no longer trading patterns, you're trading clarity. Think about it: in a room full of noise, silence becomes powerful. In a mind full of noise, simplicity becomes strength. The human brain can only hold around 7 pieces of information at once, and that's on a good day. But in trading, you're dealing with infinite data. Every tick, every move, every reaction on social media, your brain tries to make sense of it all. And when it can't, it creates illusions. You start to see things that aren't there: false setups, imaginary breakouts, patterns that confirm your bias. It's not the market lying to you. It's your brain trying to survive under pressure. Reducing cognitive load doesn't just make you more efficient, it makes you more honest with yourself. Because clarity is not the absence of information, it's the absence of confusion. The one chart mode trains your brain to see less but understand more, to go from reacting to observing, from chasing to waiting, from predicting to responding. When you only watch one chart, you build a relationship with it. You start to sense its rhythm, how it breathes before it moves, how it hesitates before it breaks. This is not analysis anymore. It's awareness. And awareness is the highest form of edge. The best traders don't have faster setups. They have calmer minds. They've trained their cognition to flow in alignment with the market's rhythm. They know that overthinking is not intelligence, it's insecurity wearing the mask of diligence. They know that fewer charts don't limit you, they free you, because each additional chart doesn't add clarity, it divides attention. And divided attention is the most expensive leak in your trading psychology. When you focus on one chart, your nervous system stabilizes, your breathing slows, your reactions become deliberate instead of desperate, and suddenly trading feels lighter, not easier, lighter. This is the paradox most traders never understand. You can't think clearly in a cluttered mind. You can't trade effectively in a cluttered screen. The one chart mode is a mirror. It reflects how much control you actually have over your impulses. It tests whether you can stay still while the world moves around you. Because stillness is not passivity, it's power. And when you master that power, you start trading from the inside out, not the outside in. The market doesn't reward the most informed trader. It rewards the most centered one. And centering begins with removing what doesn't serve your focus. So ask yourself this: are you overanalyzing because the market is complex or because your mind is noisy? Maybe it's not the data that's overwhelming you. Maybe it's the fear of missing something if you don't look everywhere. That fear is ancient, it's primal. It comes from the same part of the brain that once told your ancestors to scan the horizon for predators. But there are no predators here, just pixels, just price, just perception. The moment you understand that your mind starts to let go, you realize the market was never the enemy. Your own mental overload was. And in that moment of clarity, when your mind quiets down, you start to see something most traders never see. You don't need more information. You need more space to think. One chart gives you that space. One chart gives you back control. And control, not prediction, is what trading mastery is built on. When you strip everything away, you're left with yourself. No indicators to blame. No signals to hide behind. Just you and the market. And between you, silence. That silence is not empty. It's full of truth. Truth about your patience. Truth about your discipline. Truth about how you handle uncertainty when there's nowhere left to run. Most traders fear that silence, so they fill it with charts, alerts, opinions, noise, because if they stay busy, they don't have to face what's really happening inside. But awareness is born in silence. The one chart mode isn't just a trading tool, it's a psychological mirror. It shows you how restless your mind really is. It exposes the emotional micro movements that normally hide beneath the surface. The impulse to check, to switch, to act. That's not strategy, that's addiction. We don't talk about it enough, but trading is one of the most addictive forms of uncertainty the human brain can experience. The constant feedback loop, the flashing candles, the possibility of being right. Each tick releases a drop of dopamine, and dopamine doesn't care about profits. It only cares about stimulation. That's why traders open more charts. That's why they overtrade. Not because they're undisciplined, but because their nervous system is chasing a chemical reward. The one chart mode breaks that loop. It forces you to sit with the discomfort of boredom until boredom becomes focus. In the beginning, your mind will fight back. It will scream for stimulation. It will whisper, maybe there's something better on the other chart. It will tempt you with possibility. That's not the market testing you. That's your ego begging for relevance. But if you breathe through that urge, if you let the discomfort pass without acting on it, you'll start to feel something rare clarity. you'll see that the market doesn't move faster than your ability to think. You are just thinking faster than your ability to stay calm. Every trader wants flow, that effortless state where decisions feel natural time, slows down, and execution becomes art. But flow doesn't appear in chaos, it appears in simplicity. You can't enter flow with 10 tabs open. You enter flow when everything unnecessary disappears. In one chart mode, you stop multitasking. You stop context switching. Your attention, once fragmented, begins to unify. That unity of focus lowers your cognitive load. And when the load drops, performance rises. That's not philosophy. That's neuroscience. Cognitive load theory says the brain has a limited amount of working memory. When you exceed it, your efficiency collapses. But when you free it, creativity expands. That's why simplicity feels powerful, because it gives the mind room to think, to imagine, to feel. The best traders are not logical machines. They're emotionally intelligent observers. They feel the market's rhythm the way a musician feels tempo. And you can't feel rhythm when there's noise everywhere. So one chart mode is not restriction. It's liberation. It's how you move from controlling the market to controlling yourself. When you master that control, your relationship with trading changes. You stop chasing setups. You start preparing for alignment. You stop reacting to movement. You start responding to meaning. That's when you realize trading is not a test of prediction. It's a test of presence. Presence means being fully here, not split between what's happening and what might happen. The mind that is present sees clearly. The mind that is scattered sees ghosts. Most traders lose not because they misread the market, but because they misread their own mind. One chart mode helps you read it again. It shows you the moment before the impulse, the half second where choice still exists. That's where mastery lives. When you learn to notice that half second, you can change everything. You can choose patience instead of panic. You can choose logic instead of impulse. You can choose to trade your plan, not your emotions. This is what it means to reduce cognitive load, to give your mind the space to choose wisely. And it starts small. You open your platform. You choose one chart. You breathe. You observe. You do nothing until something truly deserves your action. That restraint is not weakness. It's strength disguised as stillness. Because true traders don't need the market to move every minute. They only need to move when it matters. The more you practice one chart mode, the more you'll notice your internal dialogue changing. Less noise, less second guessing, more certainty, not in outcome, but in behavior. And that's the real foundation of confidence. Not knowing what will happen next, but knowing how you'll respond when it does. That's what separates the professional from the emotional. The professional sees less, feels less, and therefore acts better. The emotional trader sees everything, feels everything, and burns out trying to manage it. You can't outperform your nervous system. You can only regulate it. And regulation begins with simplification. Less screen, less chatter, less data. You don't win by adding more. You win by removing what drains your awareness. That's what the one chart discipline builds over time, a quieter mind, a slower pulse, a sharper intuition. Because intuition doesn't come from chaos, it comes from calm repetition, from watching the same chart so deeply that your subconscious begins to recognize patterns faster than your conscious thought. That's when you reach trading fluency, the point where your analysis is not forced, it's felt. You can't get there when your attention is scattered across 5 markets, but you can when you're deeply present with one. The irony is, by focusing on one chart, you start to understand all markets better, because you start to understand yourself. Every hesitation, every emotional spike, every sudden urge to click, they all come from the same place: your relationship with uncertainty. And the only way to change that relationship is to face it directly. No noise, no distraction, just one chart and you. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember the solution isn't more control, it's less clutter. You don't need to predict more, you need to perceive more clearly. And perception sharpens when the mind is still enough to listen. In the silence of one chart, you'll start to hear the truth you've been ignoring, that trading success was never about mastering the market. It was always about mastering the self that faces it. The mind is like water. When it is agitated, you can't see the bottom. When it becomes still, clarity appears on its own. That is the essence of one chart mode. But clarity doesn't happen by accident. It must be trained. Training your focus is not about discipline alone. It's about creating an environment where your mind naturally calms itself. Because a calm environment becomes a calm habit. Start small. Before you open your chart, close your eyes. Take 3 slow breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Notice the urge to check the market even before you begin. That small urge is your teacher. It shows you how impatient your nervous system has become. Each time you pause before reacting, you reclaim a piece of control. And in trading, control is wealth. Now open your chart, just one. No indicators, no news feed, just price and time. Let your eyes rest on it without searching for anything. Don't analyze yet, just observe. The market breathes in pulses, expansions, and contractions. It's alive. You are alive. Let both rhythms meet. This is your training ground. To hold stillness in the middle of movement. Every time your attention wanders, gently bring it back. This is not weakness. This is how focus is built, one return at a time. With repetition, your mind learns that it doesn't need to chase stimulation. It learns that patience is safety, not danger. Most traders never train this muscle. They train pattern recognition, risk management, and entries, but they ignore attention. Yet attention is the foundation of all strategy. Without stable attention, strategy collapses under emotion. You can't execute consistency from an inconsistent mind. So your daily practice becomes simple. Observe one chart for 10 minutes in silence. No intention to trade. Just watch how price moves and how you move in response. Notice when anxiety rises. Notice when you feel the need to act. Don't suppress it. Name it. Because what you can name, you can manage. This is cognitive training, not for analysis, but for awareness. You are teaching your brain to separate stimulus from response. In that separation, freedom is born. The first few days will feel uncomfortable. Your thoughts will race. You'll feel lazy, restless, even guilty for not doing enough. But that's just the addiction to activity revealing itself. Sit through it. Let the restlessness burn out. Behind it lies calm power. Once the mind stabilizes, everything else becomes easier. You'll notice entries sooner, exits cleaner, mistakes smaller, because you're no longer fighting against your own biology. The more you practice stillness, the more automatic it becomes. Soon, you'll carry that state into live trading, not just during preparation. The chart becomes an anchor, not a trigger. And when volatility spikes, you'll feel the same stillness inside. That's how professionals stay composed when everyone else panics. Not because they suppress emotion, but because they've trained their system to recognize it and let it pass. Emotional control is not denial, it's digestion. You allow emotion to exist, but you don't feed it. You observe it until it loses power. This is where psychology meets neuroscience. When you observe a feeling without reacting, the amygdala quiets down. Cortisol drops. The prefrontal cortex, the center of logic and decision, comes back online. That's the physiological reason why patience feels powerful. It's not mystical. It's chemistry. So one chart mode isn't just a trading method. It's a rewiring of the brain's relationship with uncertainty. It tells your nervous system, I'm safe, I don't need to react, I can wait, And waiting is the trader's most underrated edge, but there's more to this practice than meditation. You must also train consistency under exposure. Every session set a small intention, not a profit target, a psychological target. For example, today I will stay on one chart for an entire session. Or, today I will notice my first emotional impulse before acting on it. That's it. You're training behavior, not results. And behavior, when consistent, creates results naturally. Over time, these small wins build something greater than skill. They build identity. You start to see yourself as someone who trades calmly, someone who stays composed under pressure, and identity shapes destiny. Because once your self-image changes, discipline becomes automatic. You no longer have to force yourself to focus. You are focus. Your screen reflects your mind. When your screen is cluttered, your mind is scattered. When your screen is clean, your mind is clear. That's why one chart mode is not just visual simplicity. It's psychological alignment. Every candle becomes feedback about your state. When you feel anxious, the chart looks chaotic. When you feel calm, patterns reveal themselves naturally. Same chart, different mind. You begin to understand that perception is projection. The market shows you who you are in this moment. Every spike tests your fear. Every consolidation tests your patience. Every breakout tests your greed. And each test is an invitation to respond consciously instead of compulsively. That is what trading mastery really is. Emotional awareness applied consistently under pressure. Now imagine this. Weeks have passed. You've been in one chart mode every day. The noise feels distant. You don't crave constant movement anymore. You feel in tune with the rhythm of the market and the rhythm of yourself. You no longer fight the need for clarity. You live in it. You've reduced cognitive load to its simplest form, one decision at a time. The paradox becomes clear. When you slow down, your accuracy increases. When you do less, your returns grow. When you seek calm, profits follow naturally. Because trading at its core is not about prediction. It's about energy management. And the highest energy is not speed. It's stillness. Stillness sees everything. Stillness feels everything. Stillness reacts to nothing. That's what one chart mode gives you. A return to the original state of mastery, present, aware, unburdened. So the next time you sit before your screen, remember you don't need more information. You need less interference. One chart, one breath, one mind. And from that simplicity, precision is born. At first, one chart mode feels like restriction, but with time it becomes liberation. You begin this practice thinking it's about focus. You end it realizing it's about freedom. Freedom from noise, freedom from chasing, freedom from the constant pull of what if. You discover that peace and performance are not opposites, they are partners. One creates the other. When you slow the world down to one chart, you start to see everything else with new eyes. You notice how much energy you once wasted on things that didn't matter, how often you mistook movement for progress, how much anxiety you created by trying to control what was never yours to control. The truth is, the market doesn't demand control. It demands clarity. And clarity only exists when your inner world is quiet enough to perceive what's real. The one chart discipline rewires the way you live, because trading doesn't happen in isolation. The same mind that trades is the mind that thinks, reacts, loves, and worries. When you train yourself to hold stillness in front of a chart, you also learn to hold stillness in front of life. You stop rushing into arguments. You stop reacting to every emotion. You stop needing to be right. You start noticing your own internal triggers the way you once noticed price levels. A sudden spike of fear, a pull of impatience, a rush of ego when you win. You see it, label it, let it pass. You become your own observer, and in that observation, you gain power. Because self-awareness is the only edge that never decays. Markets evolve, strategies break, indicators fail, but a centered mind remains profitable in every environment. The trader who understands himself will adapt faster than any algorithm because he no longer trades from emotion, he trades from awareness. And awareness doesn't panic, it adjusts. That's the real wealth hidden inside simplicity. Not just more wins, but less suffering. Most traders think they want more money. What they really want is peace. Peace from uncertainty, peace from regret, peace from the noise inside their head. But peace doesn't appear when the market changes. It appears when you do. When your screen becomes a reflection of your internal order, not your internal chaos. When your trade journal reads more like a meditation log than a scorecard. When every loss becomes data instead of drama. That's when trading turns from struggle into art. Because mastery is not about perfection, it's about presence. The one chart practice teaches you to return to presence again and again until it becomes instinct. And one day you'll realize you no longer need to remind yourself to focus. You simply are focused, not forced, not rigid, just effortlessly aware. That's what true mastery feels like, not tension, but ease. The market moves and you move with it, not in reaction, but in rhythm. You've stopped fighting volatility and started flowing through it because you finally understand volatility is not chaos, it's just movement. And movement only hurts those who resist it. When you align with that flow, profits become a side effect of awareness. You no longer chase trades. You attract them by being ready, still, and aligned when opportunity appears. That's what happens when cognitive load dissolves. You see what others overlook. You act when others freeze. You rest when others panic. Your advantage is no longer knowledge. It's nervous system regulation. You can sit in uncertainty longer than anyone else, and that patience compounds like interest. Soon you begin to trust yourself again, not because you win every trade, but because you no longer lose yourself in the process. The mind that once scattered across 10 charts has now become whole again. One mind, one focus, one rhythm. You start to see trading as a mirror of consciousness. Every flicker of emotion shows you something you still haven't mastered within. And that realization stops being painful. It becomes beautiful because now you understand that each challenge is refinement. Each mistake is a message. Each loss is a lesson in disguise. And every time you return to stillness, you grow a little lighter, a little wiser, a little freer. This is what it truly means to reduce cognitive load, not to empty the mind, but to align it so deeply that it needs nothing extra to perform. You no longer seek complexity because simplicity feels powerful. You no longer need constant proof because calm feels enough. This mindset spills into everything else. You start to live like you trade intentional, observant, unhurried. You respond instead of react. You listen instead of assume. You act from clarity instead of fear. And that is where the real wealth begins. Not in the account balance, but in the state of being that created it. Because when your inner world becomes organized, the outer world starts to follow. That's the quiet secret behind all mastery. The external always mirrors the internal. So in the end, one chart mode is not about trading less. It's about thinking less and seeing more. It's about replacing noise with nuance, pressure with precision, fear with flow. You don't need to control the market. You only need to control what the market triggers in you. And that control, that self-command is what creates the difference between a trader who survives and one who thrives. The next time you open your platform, remember this. The market will always whisper chaos. It's your job to answer with calm. The world will always pull your attention outward. Your strength is bringing it back inward. Because at the end of the day, you are not trading the market, you are trading your own state of mind. One chart, one focus, one consciousness. And in that simplicity, you find everything you were chasing all along. The goal was never to master the market. The goal was to master the mind that meets it. Every candle is a mirror. Every fluctuation is feedback. The more you quiet the noise, the louder the truth becomes. Simplicity is not weakness, it is precision. And clarity, true clarity, is the final edge. When you can sit with one chart and hear your own mind without judgment, you've already won. Not because you always profit, but because you no longer lose yourself. So slow down, breathe, trade less, see more. Because the greatest trade you will ever make is the one where you exchange chaos for clarity, fear for focus, and noise for awareness. This is not just trading. This is transformation. You are not here to predict. You are here to perceive, to align, to master. And it all begins with one chart and one calm mind. Welcome home to Mind Over Markets,